Hello again guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is about herbs. I do have some herbs that are going in containers. I was in an herb garden challenge and that last upload was due on Tuesday. So I am now going to plant these herbs in ground because I started those herbs indoors in planters, and now they've overgrown the planters so much that I need to put them in ground. So what I'm going to do today is show you what's going on in the garden. I've been so busy just spending time with families the warmer season, and we're enjoying a lot of outdoor time together and having lots of fun. But I'm going to take some time off today to make that video and show you what's going on with my herbs in my garden. So let's go check it out. With my fork and shovel in hand, let's go get the work done. Now these are the herbs that have been growing in the hashtag planter HGC 2024, and you can check the videos out if you like. You can see videos of all the participants of the herb garden challenge. As you can see, they have overgrown their planter and it's time for them to grow in ground. So I'm going to find a spot in this bed here, which is mainly herbs and sweet peas, which I need to harvest because they keep growing like crazy. There's just peas everywhere. I have a few brassicas that the critters left behind for me. And I did enter some late okra, and we'll see how they do, because this one hasn't even put on its true leaves yet. But I just figured, why not? Just give it a try. Now with these herbs, I've also grown some other herbs that weren't in the challenge. And these are perennials. I have this ruta here and this elecampane or horseal, and this reseeds itself, so it'll die back, but once it goes to flower and goes to seed, then it'll reseed itself and regrow from seed in the spring. This ruta here can handle hard freezes. If it's a longer period, then the plant would actually droop, but for the most part I think it'll survive. Now another one of the herbs that I've grown this year is culantro, or we call it shadow benny where I'm from. And this is not a perennial, so it's in a container. Well, I had a bit of a change of heart and decided to change the spot where I'm going to be transplanting these herbs, because it's cooler in the spot and the sun is already hitting that side of the garden. So I'm going to work here in the cool spot, and these plants, well, some of them, because as you can see, this spot is not big enough, and all I have here pretty much is one perennial, which this is an agastache. It's in the mint family, or actually it's a hyssop, and some pumpkins, and just a sunflower and a Star of David okra that's coming up. So I'm going to use this spot to put some of these herbs in. The soil is nice and moist because we got a lot of rain last night. Well, from 11 o'clock last night until about 8 o'clock this morning, we had a lot of rain. Heavy rains, heavy downpours, even tornado warnings. So the soil is pretty much saturated. So I think it's a good day and it's a good time to transplant these herbs. So what I'm doing here is just softening up the soil, and this is a method that I know of. Some people don't dig and they just make a hole, I guess, and plant in the ground, but I work the soil before dropping my seeds, before transplant, to make sure the soil is loosened enough and there's a decent amount of airflow within the soil. So I'm just going to pull this root up, and this is one of the docks, not a burdock, but one of probably a yellow dock or a curly dock. I just rooted that up, and then I took my machete and softened up the soil, and here we are now making the holes with the shovel so I can actually transplant those herbs in. So I'm going to go ahead and prepare all that first before I start planting. Now the holes I'm making are going to go deep enough because, like I said, I dropped these seeds in March and we're now in July, and so after 4 long months there's quite a bit of a root system on these herbs. So I want to make sure I go deep enough, that I have enough room, I make the hole wide enough also, and that the roots have really good contact with the soil. Now looking at these herbs I have here in these planters, You know, it makes me want to harvest it, and I know I should. But because I'm planting it in a bigger space where it's going to have a much better chance of survival and thriving, I would go ahead and plant it directly in the ground without harvesting it for about another couple weeks or so, because I want the roots to get that room and that establishment in its new spot and continue to thrive. And then after that happens, I'd go ahead and harvest it. So first I'm going to pull out this blue sage right here. It's the second time I'm growing it from seed, but the first time I've entered it into the Herb Garden Challenge. Now when I grew it for the first time last year, it did not go to flower. I don't know why, but I brought it indoors and I overwintered it, and sure enough it went to flower while indoors. But this one now, for the first year, it's thriving and it's doing really well and has gone to flower. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to have it in its new spot, growing in ground, being able to harvest a lot of it. Even though it's been doing so well in the planter here, I know it's going to do way better growing in ground because the space is not limited when it's in ground. I'm also going to use the plant tags and put it next to the plant, so that way I'm able to familiarize myself with what the plant looks like and I'm able to identify it. So until then, I'll keep the planter tags next to the plant just to remind myself, because a lot of these herbs are in the same family group and they sometimes look alike, so it can be a lot confusing, especially if you're new to growing that herb. I'm going to be planting in, I believe, 10 of the herbs in ground today. And next up we have the Moldovan Dragonhead Balm. This is about to go to flower. And the good thing about these herbs, especially the ones that are not perennial, they would reseed themselves, or I can collect the seeds and plant it in different spots in my garden if I'd like, which I normally do because over the years I've tried planting different plants in different areas and I've noticed that they perform quite differently. It depends on how much sunlight, how much shade, and all that good stuff that factors into how your plants thrive and how well they do. And this is why I like to experiment in a garden, because I learn from what the plant shows me and for how the plant reacts to different conditions. Then I get to learn and see it firsthand. Because once you do it yourself and once you gain that experience, you either continue on your path or you make adjustments to do a better job next time around. Now this third plant here is my Ghana Akokomesa basil, and it's the first time I'm growing this also. And this planter is now empty. I planted multiple herbs per planter just to save space and to keep them together, because the planter is a little bit bigger than what I would normally use indoors. Hence the reason I planted multiple herbs in just that one planter. Pretty good size, but not big enough for when the plant starts to grow and require more space, especially root space, because these herbs will tend to get root bound if there's not enough room in the container for them to expand and to grow and reach their full capacity. Alright, so that's one done. Let's put it aside and on to the next. And I'm planting all these herbs in this one little space. It's a nice spot for my herb bed. It's not getting a whole lot of sun early in the morning, and that's fine, because once the sun goes past this area and it shines back on it, it'll get sufficient sun that's required for these plants to thrive, and so that's just about enough sunlight for them per day. Now we're going to speed this up, make this real quick, get all the herbs in the ground. And you know, the thing about planting in ground for me, which I prefer over planting in containers, is that you get all that rich nutrients from the soil, from the ground, and the earthworms are in there, the microorganisms are in there, and they work that soil and keep that plant healthy and thriving. And also, being in ground, you don't have to water as much as if you're growing in containers, and so I prefer direct sow in ground. Now this is what the herb bed looks like after I've planted the herbs in it. I still have room here. I'm just softening up the soil because they came up really clumpy, but the soil looks nice and healthy, and I'm certain that these herbs will enjoy their new space. Alright, so as you can see in this space, I have a cattle panel trellis that this pumpkin is going to run up on. I have two, one at each end, but I also have herbs in the bed. So it makes for good companion planting and vertical growing also in such a small space. It's going to run right up here on the cattle panel, right? And I have marshmallow planted in there, Korean hyssop, elecampane or horseal, Ghana and cocoa mesa basil. I have burdock, I have okra in here. Just a diverse variety of companion plants that will thrive together in such a small converted yard space. Alright, over here in this spot I have some yarrow growing, and these were grown in the Herb Garden Challenge from last year, and I planted it in ground. Also this blue borage was grown last year. So I'm actually going to plant my blue borage from this year's Herb Garden Challenge together with these. They're already going to flower and I should be harvesting it. But like I said, they're in a new space where they have more room for the roots, and so I'm not going to harvest it quite as yet. I'm going to let it go into its new space and establish itself before harvesting it. Seems a little tough here for the shovel, so I'm going to go ahead and use the fork so I can get in there, turn the soil up, and create that hole where I can plant that blue borage in. Alright, so now I've emptied 3 of the planters so far, and I had 4. Let me just adjust this a little bit. Digging a nice deep hole here, and I'm going to plant this marshmallow in that hole. See if I can get it out, all the roots. Look at that, y'all. Good root system. And of course, I'm going to use my tag. So now all these 3 are empty. I have 1 more to go. So let's head up to final planter. Because the last set I'm going to be planting, I got to be careful of where I'm putting it. And this right here is some stinging nettle that has gone to seed, and that's exactly what I have in here. This is also stinging nettle, so I prefer to plant it in one of these raised beds, but I gotta find some space. And I also have my Italico Rosso dandelion in here. So those are the last 2 herbs that I have to plant in ground, and yes, they are perennials. I think this should be easy, but I'm thinking I have stuff planted here because I can see some little stems sticking up. So I'm probably going to put the dandelion in here. Let's see, make some room for it. Yeah, I didn't dig anything up, so the dandelion is going to go in here. Oop, sorry, ginger. Y'all, I'm running out of room. I am running out of room. But because the ginger is not cold hardy, I'm still going to find a spot to put a dandelion in here because the dandelion is cold hardy and it's a perennial. The ginger is going to be in here temporarily. So let's do this. Let's find some spots. Okay. I got to be careful with this. Stinging nettle. Maybe I should have harvested it before I try to remove it, but nevertheless, let's see if I could do one of these maybe. Because I don't want to really mess with the roots too much. This stinging nettle is spreading somewhat like mint. How you would have mint spread in the ground. So if you don't want it to be a nuisance in your garden, just be careful with that. But I think I'm doing pretty good with this dandelion. I got the root out. So it came out pretty good. And I'm gonna just place it in here. You see the earthworms running away. Oop, this one came out. That's okay. This could be easier, but I don't want the I don't want a stinging nettle to come in contact with my skin because I'm allergic to it, and I'm gonna become really, really itchy. Yeah. All right. Here they are, and they're out. I'm just plant a bunch in here, I guess. And I'm glad I'm able to transplant these now, so it would have enough time to get established in this new spot before the cold weather comes in the fall. There's more dandelion in here, but I'm not fighting with it. This is all going to go down in the same hole that I dig for the stinging nettle, because I'm not going through all of this just to get these few plants out of here. So let's just find a spot for this, and I think it's going to be in this planter over here where this other plant is. I have all sorts of things going on in here, but I think I can find a spot. We have more sweet peas, but I'm gonna find a spot right in here. I'm gonna go deep, and we're gonna be putting this stinging nettle in here. Look at that, guys. My earthworms are cooperating. This raised bed here does not have a bottom, so it's open to the ground, and so the earthworms are in there doing really good work with the soil. Look at this, y'all. This is what's going on in this planter. Look at all the roots. It was definitely ready for a new spot. So in we go. I'm gonna have to add some soil to this raised bed. Just make sure I get it in there as best as I can without being harmed by the leaves. Yep, it did touch me. Hi. It did touch me, y'all. But here it is in its final spot, joining the other plant that I had in there, and that's where it's gonna be. So we have the stinging nettle, the Italico dandelion, the blue borage, the marshmallow, the horehound, the blue sage, the burdock, the Moldovan dragonhead balm, the Ghana Acokomesa basil, and these Mexican marigold here. Not this, that's a weed, but as you can see, they are here surviving. I have to find a spot for them so that I can put them in a bed, in a raised bed hopefully, along with the other herbs that weren't a part of the herb garden challenge. But I'm glad I got that done. I don't want to harvest them anymore because now they have space for their root system to grow and they can flourish. So I'll just wait a few days, or probably about a week or so, till they catch up a little bit, and then I'll harvest them. But for now, they're in the ground in their permanent spot, and I can't wait to be harvesting herbs from those plants over the years. It's such a good feeling going through this journey with the herb challenge because it expands your mind as to more herbs and other herbs that you've never known about. And so I'm able to grow lots of these herbs. I have literally ran out of space. I have no space, so come next year for the herb garden challenge, I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Um, I'll figure it out, I guess. But besides the herb garden challenge, I grow lots of different herbs. This year I grew a total of 26 different herbs, some of them for the first time. Some of them it's because I wanted more of what I already have because I grow my herbs to use it, not just to have them growing, but I choose my herbs based on what I want to do with it. So this is all for now. If you're not growing herbs, grow some herbs, enjoy some fresh tea and the medicinal benefits that are found in them, which is good for your health in maintaining your health. And you'd also learn a thing or two about growing different herbs, especially if they're not akin to your area. And you learn how to take care of them. You'll see what they do and how they grow, and you would adjust as you go along. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time right here on Fifi's Urban Homestead and Lifestyle.